But the Cincinnati Bengals also had a really great week. The Cincinnati Bengals are now 5-2. They're in the first place in the AFC, which is a shock to all of us. And Joe Burrow, JaMarr Chase, they are leading the way. And this isn't a first-time thing for the Bengals in terms of having a great quarterback and a great wide receiver. In the 2010s, Andy Dalton and A.J. Green. I wouldn't say Dalton's exactly a great quarterback, but they had a good quarterback. In the 2000s, Carson Palmer and Ocho Cinco. So they are no strangers to great quarterback and wide receiver play. But do you think Joe Burrow and Chase can surpass the former duos of the past and have more success as a team as well?
Well, for starters, shout out to JaMarr Chase. You know, he completely destroyed Marlon Humphreys, and he just put him in, like he did it to him.
Uzama killed him too.
I think, Carson, I think we skipped a step. I think they still have to pass Andy Dalton and A.J. Green. Those are two guys who went to the playoffs, 8 straight times? And granted, Andy Dalton is 5.
In 9 seasons.
Never won a game.
Never won a game.
They lost to
they had a bye one time.
They lost to the Texans twice. They lost to the Colts. They lost to the Chargers. The Steelers, they should have won.
They got hurt. Well, Dalton did not play. It was the backup.
Vontaze Burfict. Unnecessary roughness.
Jets
destroyed
beat him too, right?
AB.
Jets beat him 1 year too, right?
Yeah, with Carson Palmer, yeah.
Yeah. I think in terms of talent, I would go Joe Burrow and JaMarr Chase just because I think Chad Ochocinco is better than JaMarr Chase, but I think JaMarr Chase has a chance to definitely eclipse him in the numbers. But I just think Chad on the field, it really wasn't no weakness in his game. He can do it all. But I think Joe Burrow, right now, I think he's a smarter quarterback than Carson Palmer ever was. I think he has better intangibles than him. I think he's just all around better quarterback than Carson Palmer is in year 2. So I think they are already going to probably surpass him in a year or two. But the connection that those two guys have, they can go down as one of the best duos in Bengals history because of the fact that their connection at LSU has translated into the NFL, and JaMarr Chase is putting up mind-boggling numbers. Now, it's next year is going to be a little different. It's going to be film out on him, so he's going to be able to catch people by surprise. But the connection is just so beyond that, and I think they're going to be here for a long time. So I think Chad is better than JaMarr, but because I think the gap between Joe Burrow and Carson's a little bigger, I'm going to go with Joe Burrow and Chase. I think they're the more talented duo.
So the OG question I could have swore was, who's better? Are they better now? So with that being in mind, obviously I said no. You can't be better than Carson Palmer and Chad Ochocinco when the two of them combined from 2004 to 2010, combined for almost 8,000 yards, 50 touchdowns. I think Ocho averaged 93 receptions from 2004 to 2007 because that was their peak together before Ocho started to miss games, get hurt, see a decline in his game. So obviously with that in mind, no, not yet at least. Because from what we're seeing from JaMarr Chase and Joe Burrow has been pretty special. JaMarr Chase is going to shatter the rookie record. I do believe that. I think it won't take him that 17th game to break the record either, so people aren't going to say that there's an asterisk behind that. I think JaMarr's going to clean him because, again, his over-the-top game is impressive. His breakaway speed is impressive. He's looking like a top 5 receiver right now as a rookie. So I do believe that as of right now, you can't say that he's better than Carson Palmer or Ochocinco. We'll sound like we never watched a down of football in our lives. But eventually it could get to that point. You look at Carson Palmer, his time with Cincinnati, he was turnover prone too. And you look at up until this point of the season, Joe Burrow has had his fair share of interceptions. But at the same time, he's thrown a lot of touchdowns. I think he's already.
Let me ask you a question.
Let me hear it.
Why can't you? You've watched Joe Burrow play.
Yeah.
You've watched Carson Palmer play.
Yeah.
Who do you think is better?
So I think
throw the numbers out the way. You've seen both of them play because the numbers, you can say, but they become a little bit miscued in the situation in football. Yeah. That really matters. You watch both of them play. You've watched Chad and you've watched JaMarr Chase play.
Yeah.
Who do you think's better?
It's tough because Chad's footwork is some of the best I've ever seen from a wide receiver, and you can ask any corner will say it. They had a harder time guarding Chad Ochocinco than a lot of other wide receivers who just had size on them because of his footwork, because of his speed. He was so generational in that sense. JaMarr, though, kind of has everything, which I think eventually JaMarr will surpass Ocho, but he's obviously going to have to stay healthy. He's going to have this connection with Joe Burrow, continue to grow, which I think it will. Now, the Joe Burrow to Carson Palmer argument, that one's close because Carson Palmer didn't have the best team in Cincinnati, truthfully, and his numbers weren't the best. He had a great year in 2005, stupendous year. I think he had 33 touchdowns, I think he had under 13 or 14 interceptions. That's a really great year, especially for being your second year in the NFL. Then it was a lot of okay years, a lot of turnovers. Then he leaves, goes to Oakland. At the time, they were the Oakland Raiders. He was okay, but then goes to Arizona and really stood out, like had really good numbers. So I look at Joe Burrow right now, and I think that, his last season, the Bengals team wasn't that great, but this year, obviously, he's having a huge turnaround season with the Bengals, and it's kind of similar to what happened with Carson Palmer. Carson Palmer had a mediocre first year. Second year comes back. They're first in the division. It's looking like history is going to repeat itself, possibly. Obviously, the Ravens are right there. Bengals are good enough to be the first seed have the first spot in their division. So it's too hard to say right now who's better, who I think will ultimately be better. As long as these two stay together for a while, I think Joe Burrow has a lot of intangibles to be better. He's mobile, can get out of the pocket, throw accurately on the run, throw accurately in the pocket itself, is smart, knows to make the right decision when he needs to, can read a field very well. So I think Joe Burrow will get there, but it's too early to say that they're flat out better. But I'm along the lines similar to you that I think they will be better eventually.
The Bengals have had a lot of bad luck throughout the franchise's history, and it really started to begin like in the 1990s. 1991 was their last playoff win against the Oilers, who aren't even a team anymore. And when talking about Joe Burrow versus Carson Palmer and Andy Dalton, I don't think Palmer nor Dalton are the best Bengals quarterback. I think it's Boomer.
For sure.
Boomer won an MVP. He led them to the Super Bowl in 1988. And they lost to the 49ers 20-17. Joe Montana, Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice had 200 yards receiving in that game. He was flat out unstoppable. So I think Boomer is the best Bengals quarterback. And the other day I was watching a Burrow and Boomer kind of sit down film session conversation. It was really awesome to see. The Bengals since 2004 have made the playoffs 7 times and have lost each time. They lost in 2005 to the Steelers because Carson Palmer on the second play injured his knee, torn ACL. Then in 2009, the Jets beat him. Rivas held Ocho Cinco to under 30 yards in that playoff game. And then from 2000 to about 2016, lost to the Texans twice, who didn't even have a quarterback at that time. The Colts, Chargers, and then the Steelers. They should have beat the Steelers. I think the duo of Dalton and Green were better than Palmer and Ocho. From a talent perspective, you can say Ocho and Palmer, but from their accomplishments, it's Dalton and Green. AJ Green had 6 1,000-yard receiving seasons. Dalton was a 3-time Pro Bowler. They made the playoffs 5 times in 9 years. Palmer and Ocho, Palmer was a 2-time Pro Bowler. Ocho Cinco had 7 1,000-yard receiving seasons, and they made the playoffs 2 out of 5 years. So they didn't make the playoffs much, and they had a great team. It was Ocho, Hushmanzada, Chris Henry. They also had Cedric Benson, who came on later.
Yep.
And even in 2005, they had Rudy Johnson, who rushed for 1,400 yards that season. But I think Dalton and Green were better. I will say that I think JaMarr Chase and Joe Burrow are going to go down as the best quarterback wide receiver duo in Bengals history.
Yep.
Right now, JaMarr Chase is on pace for 1,700 yards. That would not only break the rookie receiving record, but JaMarr Chase would become he would have the best single receiving yards record in Bengals history, passing Ocho Cinco. Ocho Cinco, 1,400 yards. Joe Burrow is on pace to pass for 39 touchdowns, which would surpass Andy Dalton's mark right now of 33 touchdowns in a single season, which is the best in Bengals history. So Joe Burrow can hold the best season for a quarterback in Bengals history this year, and JaMarr Chase can hold the record for the best receiving season in Bengals history this year. And we're talking about somebody who's a rookie in Chase and a second-year player in Burrow who tore up his knee in his first year and came back earlier than expected. My gut feeling tells me this duo is going to be the best. My gut feeling also tells me, based on a track record, winning at LSU, they're going to break the curse of losing in the playoffs, Burrow and Chase, and this team as a whole, because this team, great defensive line, they get after it, tremendous run defense, Awuzie breakout season, Eli Apple having a comeback year as well, Mike Hilton in the slot. Their linebackers are very good. Logan Wilson's one of the better ball hawks in the NFL at that position. If they can get this offensive line right to a great or elite level, the Bengals can be a team, a force to be reckoned with for years to come. And I think this is just a start. They're 5-2 right now. I'm not sure if they'll finish first in the AFC, but I have a lot of confidence they'll be the best team in the AFC North this year.
Best team as in best overall team.
They'll finish with the best record.
Okay. So wait, so I'm confused there because you said that they won't. You're not sure if they'll win the division, but you think that they'll be the best.
No, he
team.
said they're not sure if they'll win the conference, but they'll win
Oh,
the
I'm
division.
sorry, I wasn't. All right, fair enough. Okay, not too much pushback there, truthfully, because obviously I'm looking at the Ravens. They're banged up, but even still, they've been a solid football team.
We just saw the Bengals smoke the
They
Ravens.
just got smoked. They got smoked for sure.
They just did it to him.
Yeah, and that was at Baltimore, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I'm not ready to lose hope on the Ravens' success this season, but at the same time, I'm looking at the Bengals, and they're looking very complete. And this is without Tyler Boyd or T. Higgins really getting involved in the offense at all. We're seeing C.J. Uzomah really be the second breakout player. Joe Mixon started the season off very hot. He got hurt, kind of fell off a little bit, but still doing enough to have an effective run game where you can't just scheme for JaMarr Chase and double him and try and take him out the game. Because you can't really do that because then that's when T. Higgins, C.J. Uzomah, Tyler Boyd come into play. So it's tough to say that they're going to be number one in division, obviously, because you see the Ravens and how much success they've had. But at the same time, their defense is clicking. Their offense is clicking. They're having immediate success with JaMarr Chase and Joe Burrow, which is paying dividends. So, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility that we do see them win the division. I just not ready to say it's a lock yet because obviously the Ravens have earned that respect.
So if JaMarr Chase, say for example, he gets to 1,700, would you immediately put him over AJ and Ocho?
Longevity-wise, no, you can't. But when we talk about
Peaks?
who had the best receiving season as a Bengal, even if JaMarr Chase gets to 1,500 yards, it's him. He's going to hold that. Ocho's at 1,400, like 1,456 yards. If JaMarr Chase gets to 1,500, he's number one.
You know what's crazy about that, too? I remember in A.J. Green's year when he had about 700 yards in about 7 games, and he was on pace to do what JaMarr Chase was doing. Not probably at the same level, but he had 100 yards repeatedly. They were losing, though. And then he got hurt and messed his foot up, and that was the end of the A.J. Green era in the Bengals. It kind of reminds me of that situation now where JaMarr Chase every week is just going out there, and he's just putting up gaudy numbers, and he's just dominating. And this is with two guys who he was a third receiver coming in. You know, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, those are guys in front of him. And now he's asserted himself as the number one guy in his rookie year, which is pretty incredible. I'm still say Baltimore going to the division though. But they did just lose. It's tough, but I'm still.
The Bengals have a tough schedule, but they do face the Jets.
Number one in the
and they see Baltimore one more time, right?
Yeah.
Who's number one in the conference right now? The Bengals?
It's the Bengals, yeah.
That's crazy.
But it's tiebreaker because
Yeah.
the Ravens they're 5-2 as well. There's a lot of teams I think
It's not tough because they beat the Ravens.
The Titans are 5-2 right now as well.
Bills.
So there are a
4-2.
lot of teams at that top right now, but the Bengals own the tiebreaker, so they're first in the AFC.
Yeah,
right
the
now.
conference is definitely going to be tough for sure. To be number one in the conference would be impressive as sin, but I don't know if they could pull out being number one. They could win the division. I'll easily bet on them winning the division before them winning the conference, but I'm looking at the Bills. I'm looking at, obviously, the way that the Chargers have played. Can't count them out, obviously, but Bengals look really good. Their secondary looks solid, and their rush defense obviously looks really good too.
So how do you feel about JaMarr Chase and Burrow?
I mean, I pretty much kind of agree with all of you. I've been looking at Carson Palmer's raw numbers, and outside of that one season that you alluded to in 2005, no other season really stands out to me as an elite season throughout his career as a Bengal. And then on top of that, the fact that A.J. Green and Andy Dalton, Carson Palmer, Ocho Cinco, they didn't even win a playoff game. So I think, I know it's the truth. That's what people know the Bengals for. They
And
have
in
the
09
longest playoff losing streak drought, I think, since
And in
91
09, they should have beat the Jets,
Yeah, without a doubt.
and we beat them. Sanchez.
Rivas locked up. But, other than that, I think if JaMarr Chase and Joe Burrow get a playoff win, I think that automatically puts them over them as a duo. I mean, how many years did Chad and Palmer play? 5 years, made the playoffs twice, didn't win a game. A.J. Green.
They made it 5 out of 6, I
Yeah.
believe.
No.
You know,
No, five out of 8, right?
Palmer and Ocho made it 2 seasons out of 6.
Oh,
Okay.
that's
Dalton
what-
and
six.
AJ made it 5 seasons out of 9.
So Dalton and none of them got
It
to
was,
win.
what was it,
None of
5
them got to
straight?
win. Yeah, it was 5 straight from
So, I mean-
2011 to 2016. I think 2015, 2016.
Like just the way the Bengals are playing right now, I don't know if they can sustain this, but let's just say they get home field in the playoffs. I wouldn't count them out to win a game against a lower end wild card team. I mean, I think they're good enough, and I think just solely winning a playoff game, that's going to resign well with the Bengals fans because you haven't seen that since '91, and then
30 years.
yeah, just about. Damn, it's a long time.
You know what's crazy? But it's funny because with the AFC, a low end team can be could be
good
the
team.
Chargers.
Like the Colts could be a wild card.
Could be the
That's gonna
Chargers.
be
Could be the
could be a
Ravens.
tough game.
It could be the Chiefs.
Yeah, it could be the
But
Chiefs.
then you know what
like,
else we could see?
I would want to face the Chiefs.
We
I'm
could
gonna be
see.
honest.
We could see
In a playoff game? I wouldn't.
we could see
Their
the Bengals head
defense,
to the
hell yeah.
playoffs and get those playoff jitters because none of them, obviously, Joe Burrow, JaMarr Chase, going to be a lot of people's first time, being there as
Sure.
well. So I mean, I don't know. I think that it really doesn't take much to be a better duo than them. Just outside of the fact that the 2 previous duels that we had, quarterback receiver, they didn't win a playoff game. And I think if JaMarr Chase and Joe Burrow can win a playoff game, in my opinion, even as a Bengals fan, which I'm not, but if I was, that would put them over anybody else because you did something that nobody's done since
Does it though?
'91 and
Because
win a playoff game.
You have told me winning is not a QB stat. So does
It's a team
that
stat.
put them over the top? Over the top?
I was gonna say,
Well,
if-
just
if-
quarterback. Pardon me.
Okay,
Just
bro.
quarterback wide receiver duo. I mean, that's the question, right? So I think like if they have an impact on the game, they impact the outcome of the game. They they have a quarterback to wide receiver connection a couple times throughout the game. If not even once, I think that's more than enough to put your mark on a playoff win. I think But if like Joe Burrow, if they win that game predominantly just off Joe Mixon running and everything, all right then you can. It's just weird. It depends how you would see it as a fan. I think
Winning is
I
not a
think regardless-
quarterback stat, but winning does showcase success.
Yeah.